TechDaily.ai, your source for technical information. This podcast is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyperconverged and VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're listening, chances are you need to get smart on complex topics and, well, you need to do it fast. So let's be honest, nobody wants to drown in like a million browser tabs and just endless scrolling.
Tell me about it.
So that's exactly what we're tackling today. We're diving deep into a new breed of AI tools specifically built for, you guessed it, deep research.
Right. And we're moving beyond the kind of AI chatbots you might use for, say, brainstorming or just a quick question.
Okay.
We're looking at tools designed for the real heavy lifting systems that claim they can browse the web, analyze, vast amounts of information, and synthesize it into detailed reports. So automating complex knowledge work, like technical subjects or even real-time stuff like stock trends.
Exactly that kind of thing.
And the promise is huge, isn't it? Saving you hours, maybe even days of that manual digging.
That's the pitch, yeah.
For listeners like you who need those aha moments, but without the information overload, these tools sound like a potential game changer.
They certainly could be.
So we've gone through some source material that put several of these tools to the test. Our mission today is to extract the essential insights, what they can actually do, where they shine, and where they fall short.
So you can figure out if they really deliver and maybe which one fits your workflow.
Precisely. Quickly understand the landscape.
Okay, so let's maybe kick things off by setting the stage. What really defines these deep research tools?
Good question.
As you mentioned, it's their capability to handle these complex, multifaceted research tasks. They aren't just summarizing one article.
Right.
They're meant to tackle topics that need info from lots of places, often needing real-time updates, too.
And what surprised me from the material was their accessibility. You hear about complex AI costing a fortune.
Right, you expect huge price tags.
But most of the tools reviewed here are around, $20 a month?
Yeah, roughly in that ballpark. Plus, many have free trials or credits. Grok has limited free access. Manners AI gives you free credits to start.
So you can try before you buy, essentially.
Exactly, and when you weigh that against the hours you might save, well, that $20 looks pretty appealing.
Definitely a good value proposition on paper.
Now, here's where we hit a really crucial point. A caveat you must remember when using any AI, but especially for research.
Okay, what's that?
You absolutely positively have to take the output with a grain of salt.
Ah, the classic grain of salt.
Yeah.
I saw mention in the material of a benchmark called Humanity's Last Exam. That sounds intense.
It does sound dramatic, yeah. And the results are, well, a bit of a reality check. This benchmark tests AI models on really expert-level knowledge across different fields. And the finding, even the most advanced AI models, the ones powering these deep research tools, they scored less than 30% on these super challenging questions.
Wait, less than 30%. So on the really tough expert-level stuff, the best AI is still wrong most of the time.
That's what it suggests. Maybe wrong, or at least not fully correct, 7 or 8 times out of 10 on those really hard, nuanced questions.
Wow.
And this is why the source material really hammers home the point about critical thinking. It's not just a nice-to-have when using AI.
It's essential.
It's absolutely fundamental. These tools are amazing assistants, right? They can find and structure information incredibly fast.
Yeah.
But your human judgment, that's indispensable for interpreting it, verifying it, understanding the why.
Don't just blindly trust the output.
Never. Critically engage with it.
That's a really powerful reminder. So the AI does the grunt work, the finding and organizing.
Right, the heavy lifting.
But the human brain provides that vital layer of validation, synthesis, context.
Spot on. So with that massive caveat in mind, how are these specific tools actually compared in the source material? How did they figure out their capabilities?
Well, to keep it fair, they use the exact same very detailed prompt for every single tool.
Okay, same starting point for everyone.
Yep. And the topic they chose was knowledge graphs.
Ah, complex topic.
Definitely. Covering the definition, how they stack up against traditional databases, use cases, challenges, how AI is helping build them, specific tools in the field. And they even asked for a tutorial.
That's a pretty comprehensive test. Knowledge graphs connect lots of disparate info, so yeah, good way to push these tools on the deep research aspect.
Exactly. And to give each tool its best shot, the testing used the most powerful LLM, the core AI brain.
The engine underneath.
Right, the best one available on each platform at the time. Though they did note that for simpler tasks, you might not need the absolute top-tier model, which makes sense.
Fair enough. And how were they rated? What were the criteria?
3 main things. Speed, how fast you got the results. Depth and nuance, basically. How detailed and insightful the analysis was.
The quality of the content.
Exactly. And readability, how clear and well presented the information was. So layout, formatting, any visuals, that sort of thing.
Speed, depth, readability. Got it.
All right, let's unpack the performance then, starting with OpenAI's offering, ChatGPT Deep Research.
Okay, ChatGPT. This one needs a Plus subscription, or at least a trial.
Right.
And setting it up for this particular task, it involved a bit of back and forth. That AI actually asked some clarifying questions.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Things about the intended audience, specific industries for the use cases, the difficulty level for the tutorial, and the output format, like did you want a report or a presentation?
That interaction could actually be useful for getting a more tailored result, couldn't it?
Potentially, yeah. It shows us trying to understand the context better.
So what did the final output look like for the knowledge graph topic?
It produced a structured report, followed the requested format, clear sections, included things like tables for comparisons, knowledge graphs versus traditional databases, used bolding and stuff to make it easier to scan.
And how extensive was it?
It was described as a pretty big report, around 25 pages for this topic.
25 pages. Okay, that definitely fits the deep description. What were its strong points in this test?
The material highlighted its good structure and how comprehensive it was. It covered the requested sections pretty thoroughly.
And the downsides, where could it improve?
Well, it tended to be long-winded and heavy. That was one observation.
Like maybe too much information.
Could be. And a more notable point was a potential bias. It frequently mentioned OpenAI's own models, GPT-3 and GPT-4. And it even listed GPT-4 as a top tool for building knowledge graphs, sometimes over like really established purpose-built platforms like Neo4j.
Okay. A bit self-promotional, perhaps.
Possibly. It also missed mentioning some other key tools used in the knowledge graph space.
So, thorough, well-structured, but maybe a bit verbose and potentially biased on the tool recommendations. How did it score on those 3 criteria?
Speed got a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Depth and nuance, also a 45, reflecting its thoroughness, but, with that bias noted. Readability scored a bit higher at 4.55, thanks to the formatting and structure.
Okay, solid performance, but with caveats. Let's move to Google's offering, Gemini Deep Research.
Right, Gemini. This needs a Pro subscription. Its output was also a report, well-structured, clear sections. But interestingly, it used shorter, more concise paragraphs and simpler language compared to ChatGPT.
Easier to read, maybe?
Potentially, yeah. And one standout feature was its export and action options.
Oh!
You could export straight to Google Docs, easily copy the content, or even kick off actions like creating a web page, an infographic, or even an audio summary based on the report.
Wow, those integrations sound really practical, taking the research and turning it into something else quickly.
Exactly. Very useful for workflow.
What about its performance on depth and nuance? Did it impress there?
It really did, actually. It added relevant sections that weren't explicitly asked for in the prompt.
Like what?
Like a comparison between knowledge graphs and vector databases.
Oh, that's super relevant now with all the AI focus.
Exactly. Vector databases are key for certain AI tasks, so comparing them was a really smart, useful addition. It also included important tools that ChatGPT missed, like the LangChain LM Graph Transformer module.
Which is part of a popular AI framework, right?
Yeah, widely used.
Yeah.
And get this, the tutorial section even included an interactive visualization using Pivus, which is a Python library for network graphs.
Interactive visuals. That's pretty cool.
It is. And overall, the material noted that Gemini felt more neutral and objective compared to ChatGPT, gave a more balanced perspective.
Adding relevant context, being more objective, those sound like big pluses for a research tool. Any drawbacks noted for Gemini?
One minor point was that part of the tutorial was described as maybe more complex than it needs to be.
Oh.
And it missed a few smaller details,
Yeah.
like it didn't provide a specific pros and cons section for the various tools it mentioned. Small things, really.
Got it. So how did Gemini rate overall?
Speed was similar to ChatGPT, a 45. Depth and nuance was rated slightly higher at 4.55, reflecting those valuable added insights and the balanced view.
And readability.
That got the highest rating among all the tools,
Yeah.
a full 55, praised for its clear, concise language and that useful formatting.
Okay, very strong showing from Gemini then. How did Perplexity AI Deep Search stack up against these two?
Perplexity. This also needs a pro subscription for its deeper search features.
Oh,
Now, if speed is your absolute #1 priority,
yeah.
Perplexity is your winner. Hands down. It was described as lightning fast.
Lightning fast. Faster than the roughly 10 minutes for ChatGPT and Gemini.
Oh, yeah. We're talking maybe, what, 1 or 2 minutes for Perplexity? It
Yeah.
absolutely crushed it on speed. Got a
Wow.
55 rating there easily.
That's incredibly fast. What's the trade-off then? You usually trade something for that kind of speed.
You do. The material noted that the output gave fundamental information, decent level of detail.
Hmm.
Probably enough for general fact-finding. It got a 45 for depth and nuance.
Okay, still pretty good depth.
Decent, yes. But the readability really fell short.
How so?
The output was less verbose, sure, but quite dry. It lacked helpful formatting like bullet points or highlights. No summaries at the end of sections. The structure was called a bit rough, and the flow isn't as smooth.
So it felt more like raw search results than a polished report.
Exactly. More like a super efficient search engine output, less like a synthesized research document.
Gotcha. So amazing speed for quick facts, but maybe less polished for a deep, structured report. What were the final ratings again?
Speed, 55, the clear winner. Depth nuance, 45, respectable. But readability was lower, 35, due to those formatting and structure issues.
Okay. Next up, let's look at Grok Deep Search.
Grok, big advantage here.
Yeah.
It's free, though, with limited access, and it was also noted as being super quick.
Another speedy one and free. Sounds promising. What about the research output quality?
Well, it did provide structured sections. It had short tables and listed use cases, but didn't really give detailed examples. The content was mostly just short bullet points.
Sounds like it might be a bit shallow, not really living up to the deep search name.
You nailed it. The material specifically noted that the content doesn't go very deep. The report felt shallow overall and wasn't particularly easy to follow either.
So probably only good if you need just a few quick bullet points.
That's exactly the conclusion. Suitable if you just want to have some quick bullet points, but definitely not for serious, in-depth research or an extensive report.
Quick and free, but you get what you pay for, maybe. Lacking substance for a real deep dive. What about ratings?
Speed was noted as super quick, though not given a formal number like the others. Depth and nuance got a 35, and readability also a 35. Pretty low on both counts.
Right. Finally, let's explore Manners AI. This one sounds a bit different.
It is. Manners AI is described more as a general AI agent, and it offers free credits to get started, which is nice. But the biggest difference was speed. While the others were in the 1 to 10 minute range, Manners AI took about 30 minutes to finish this research task.
30 minutes? Wow, that's definitely an outlier. A much longer wait. Was the output worth that extra time?
Well, according to the source material, yes. The results were described as really impressive.
Impressive how?
The report was comprehensive, yet really easy to follow. Well-organized, concise. It was described as feeling like a well-structured study note. Easy to skim and digest.
That sounds ideal for learning quickly.
Right, and it went above and beyond the prompt in several interesting ways. For the tools section, for instance, it didn't just list them. It gave detailed descriptions, features, strengths, limitations, ideal use cases for each one.
Even though that wasn't explicitly asked for.
Exactly. That shows a deeper level of analysis. It also generated a step-by-step tutorial in Markdown format, which is super useful for documentation.
That detail, going beyond the prompt, sounds like a huge value add. Any other unique features?
Yes, a really big one. It included custom visuals that it generated itself using Python code.
Custom visuals, like charts.
Yeah, like a radar chart comparing different data storage systems based on the research. There was some minor text overlay issues on one chart, apparently, but the ability to generate relevant visuals directly from the research, that was unique among the tools tested.
That is impressive.
And one more thing. It included references per section.
Oh, that's great for verification.
Absolutely. Fantastic for tracing specific points back to a source. It didn't have in-text citations like you might see in academic papers, but references by section is still really helpful.
So recap on Manners. Slowest by far, but potentially the most comprehensive, best presented, and maybe even the smartest output.
Based on this one test, that's exactly the picture painted. It was called the most well-rounded and comprehensive research. It got 8 top marks. 55 for depth nuance and 55 for readability.
Wow, perfect scores there.
But of course, speed was rated lower at 35 because of that 30-minute processing time.
Right. But, 30 minutes? If that gets you a report and analysis that might have taken days of manual research, or maybe even required hiring someone.
That time trade-off starts to look very different, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It suddenly seems very appealing depending on the complexity and importance of the task.
It really highlights that speed isn't everything. If depth, detail, structure, and presentation quality are what you really need, Manners AI made a very strong case in this specific comparison.
Okay, so we've journeyed through 5 different tools, seen how they performed on this knowledge graph test. Let's try to synthesize this. Pulling all these findings together, what does this mean for you, the listener, trying to pick the right tool?
Well, based purely on this single comparison, and that's the important caveat, the overall takeaway was kind of nuanced. Google Gemini seemed to do the best job overall, hitting a great balance between quality and speed.
So maybe the best all-rounder.
Potentially, yes. For a general deep research tool, Manners AI, though, was considered the most well-rounded option if speed isn't your absolute top priority and you really value those comprehensive, well-presented reports.
If quality is king, Manners might be it, despite the weight.
Precisely. ChatGPT was seen as solid, reliable, but maybe watch out for the length and that potential bias we talked about.
Okay.
And Perplexity. Fantastic. If you just need to gather facts and information as quickly as possible, like lightning-fast fact retrieval.
Great summary. And it's really vital to repeat, like the source emphasized. This is based on one sample topic, right?
Absolutely crucial. Performance could definitely vary depending on the specific nature of your research task, the sources available, all sorts of things.
But this comparison gives us incredibly valuable insights, doesn't it? Into the capabilities, the strengths, the weaknesses, the trade-offs of these different systems.
It really does. And it points to that much bigger trend we're seeing everywhere.
Yeah.
The accelerating automation of knowledge work.
It feels like information and facts themselves are becoming almost commoditized.
That's a good way to put it. They're no longer that hard to access. The challenge isn't finding information. It's sifting through the sheer volume, verifying the accuracy, making sense of it all.
And connecting the dots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what used to take teams of people days or weeks, well, these tools can potentially draft something in minutes or half an hour.
Which naturally leads some people to worry, right?
Yeah.
Is knowledge work being devalued? Are human experts becoming obsolete?
It's a common fear.
Yeah.
But the perspective from this material, and I tend to agree, suggests pretty much the opposite.
Oh, how so?
It argues that skills like critical thinking, judgment, synthesis, asking the right questions, strategic application, they become more important, not less.
Because the AI handles the grunt work.
Precisely. The AI provides the raw material, maybe even a first draft report, but you are the one who has to interpret that output. You have to spot the potential flaws or biases. Remember that sub 30% score on expert questions.
Right, you have to be the quality control.
And the synthesizer. You have to weave it into your existing knowledge, your context, and figure out how to actually use it to make smart decisions or create something genuinely new in the real world.
So the AI frees you from the tedious parts, the information retrieval and basic structuring.
Allowing you to focus your limited cognitive energy on the higher level tasks, the things that require uniquely human expertise, creativity, and wisdom.
That's the key shift then. These tools reduce the friction of getting information compiled, potentially letting you spend more time on deep analysis, connecting ideas in novel ways, or that creative problem-solving that, well, only your brain can really do.
That's the potential. That's the opportunity these tools present.
So a final thought for everyone listening. If AI can handle the heavy lifting of finding and structuring information, what deeper levels of analysis, connection, or creative problem solving does that free you up to focus on? Something to definitely mull over as you consider if and how these tools might fit into your own workflow.
A very provocative question to end on.
Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, hyper-converged in VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance, and public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com or email your project requirements to sales@stonefly.com. TechDaily.ai, your source for technical information.